Hello, welcome to our channel. Click subscribe button to see more content like this. Today we will share the gruesome story of an Austrian criminal and rapist who held his daughter captive under his house and subjected her to tortures for 24 years. Everything seemed like a very innocent request. Elizabeth Fritzl was going to help her father to lift a door. Elizabeth Fritzl followed her father Josef Fritzl into the depths of the basement that he had been trying to build under the house for years. It was August 1984. Elizabeth went down to the basement and installed the door with her father. Her mother was at work on that day. She was not at home. The basement was ready. Elizabeth turned towards the stairs to go upstairs, but suddenly a rag was wrapped around her mouth and nose. This was a terrible beginning of an extremely cruel and monstrous plan. How could Elizabeth know that her father Josef Fritzl had built the basement to lock her there? She would spend 24 years of her life in that basement. Let us briefly tell you about the monster father, Josef. He was born in Austria in 1935 and married his wife Rosemary in 1956. He was a retired electrical engineer and was receiving rental income from some properties in the neighborhood. He was sentenced to 1 year in prison in 1960 on rape charge. After his release from the prison, Josef continued his life as if nothing had happened. After locking his daughter Elizabeth in the basement, his wife filed a missing report to the police. Later, Josef Fritzl told police that he had been receiving letters from his daughter and that Elizabeth had left home to live with her friends. Josef managed to deceive the police. In the next 24 years, Josef kept Elizabeth in the basement under the house. He used to bring necessary products such as food, toilet paper to the basin. There was even a television. She was subjected to a number of rapes. During the 24 years she was in captivity, Elizabeth was raped multiple times and got pregnant 7 times. By 1994, Elizabeth had been locked there for 10 years and was living there with her 2 children who had never seen a sunlight. After the birth of the 3rd child, Josef allowed the dungeon to be expanded. He made Elizabeth and the children work with their bare hands. He built new rooms for them, bought them new televisions, radios, even cassette players. Elizabeth taught her children to read and write. Sometimes Josef would punish them by keeping them hungry or cutting off their electricity. This horrible situation raises many questions in one's mind. One of these questions is how Elizabeth's mother, living in the same house, was not aware of all of these things. The basement was built like a shelter. It was soundproof. At the same time, Josef was violent towards his wife. He told her not to enter the basement. That's why his wife did not even mention the basement. Over the years, Josef continued to send fake letters to his wife on behalf of Elizabeth. In the letters, Elizabeth allegedly wrote that she had joined a religious sect and was happy with her life. Believing that Elizabeth was healthy and happy, Rosemary did not suspect anything. The second question is why Elizabeth and her children did not try to run away during those years. Josef had told them that the room could be opened only from outside and that any attempt to open it from inside would result in the explosion of the entire house. The police investigations would reveal that this was just a threat. According to his sister-in-law Christine, Josef used to go down to the basement every morning at 9 a.m. He wouldn't even let his wife bring him coffee. Years had passed. Elizabeth had given birth to 4 children. When he saw that there was no room left downstairs, Josef took the 4th child. He left the house secretly one morning and returned late at night. His wife was astonished when she saw the baby in his arms. Josef told Rosemary that he had met Elizabeth and that she had given birth to a child and was unable to take care of the child. In 1996, Elizabeth gave birth to twins. Michael, one of the twins, died from breathing difficulties in his mother's arms 3 days after the birth. Joseph took the other child to his house, alleging that Elizabeth had sent the baby. Elizabeth was going to give birth to 2 more kids. The harassment and rape continued for years. On April 9, 2008, Elizabeth's eldest daughter fainted. Elizabeth begged her father to save her. Kirsten saw the outside world for the first time in 24 years. Kirsten was taken to the hospital by an ambulance. Fritzl later arrived at the hospital claiming to have found a note written by Kirsten's mother describing her medical condition. A medical staff did not find some aspects of the Fritzl story credible. The police were notified and Elizabeth's case was reopened. Fritzl repeated the lie about Elizabeth allegedly joining a religious cult. Kirsten's treatment was continuing. When Josef returned to the basement, Elizabeth pleaded with him to take their 2 other kids to the hospital. Josef agreed. In hospital, he was detained. Police came to their house. Elizabeth immediately agreed to testify. She talked about her years in captivity for 2 hours. Fritz, who was 73 years old, was arrested on April 2008. On April 29, DNA tests proved that he was the biological father of Elizabeth's children. Police found out that Fritz was making plans to release them. He would pretend to have saved them from the sect. The court proceedings officially started on March 16, 2009. Fritz was already behind bars. On the first day of the first hearing, Fritzl tried to hide his face behind a blue folder. He accepted all charges against him. In 2009, Fritzl was sentenced without the possibility of a parole. He still continues to serve his sentence. After that trial, Elizabeth and her 6 children moved to an unnamed village in northern Austria. The children were treated for a long time. The villagers would frequently see Elizabeth while shopping and driving. Residents treated them as one of them. Elizabeth was in a relationship with one of the bodyguards assigned to protect her house. In May 2017, Josef changed his surname from Fritzl to Mayroth as he was constantly beaten by other prisoners. A last information about him surfaced in April 2019. Josef's health was reportedly deteriorating, and he did not want to live anymore. A case titled The Fritzl Case is indeed one of the most terrible and disgusting ones that humanity has ever seen. Josef is behind bars. His daughter and her children, who were subjected to his tortures for 24 years, continue to recover.